Welcome back, Monopoly and Public Policy. In this video, you will learn how monopolies affect total surplus and create a dead weight loss. Okay, so this video really is all about the welfare effects of monopoly, and when we say welfare effects, remember again, we're talking about consumer surplus, producer surplus, and total surplus for the economy. That's how we're going to judge the welfare of a certain type of market structure. So on the left-hand side, you have a picture of perfect competition. Perfect competition, we have a horizontal price, we have a downward sloping demand curve for the industry, and you notice that all of the surplus is consumer surplus. Okay, so everything above the price and below the demand curve. So it's all consumer surplus, and they produce to a point where marginal revenue, which is equal to the price, is equal to the marginal cost. And so that's what you see there. Now on the right-hand side, you have an image showing us a monopoly. And so what our statement is, it says consumers' loss is larger than monopolists' gain, causing a net loss for society. So we have to again go back a couple of videos and think about what we're seeing here. We know that the monopolist, just like the perfect competitive firm, they are going to produce to the point where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. So on the right-hand side, find that. You see the downward sloping MR curve, you see the horizontally sloping MC curve. They're going to intersect at a price of 20 and a quantity of 40. But we know that they don't charge that price because their price they find based on their demand curve at that quantity. So at the quantity of 40, we move up to a price of 60, and that's going to be the price charged by the monopolist. All right, so the price charged is $60, the quantity produced is 40. Now, what we notice here, again, consumer surplus is still the amount that's below the demand curve and above the price. So that's going to be that red triangle at the top. Producers now have a good amount of surplus because they have what's below the price but above the supply curve, or in this case, the supply curve is our marginal cost. So they have some producer surplus, but there's this orange triangle that is dead weight loss. And so what's happening here is total surplus is going to be smaller under the monopoly than under perfect competition. In perfect competition, all three of those, both triangles and the square, would all three be not only total surplus, but it would be consumer surplus, in fact. So consumers are losing surplus, that's fine. Economists don't mind that. The problem with a monopoly is that the producers aren't gaining all of it. There's a deadweight loss. And the next slide is going to talk about why exactly there's a deadweight loss and what's negative here about having a monopoly. So the reason that there's this deadweight loss is because there are some mutually beneficial transactions that are not going to occur. What that means is that there are people for whom an additional unit of the good is worth more than the marginal cost of producing it, but those people don't get to consume it because they are not willing to pay the monopoly price. All right, so again, remember that we're talking about our monopoly price is where price is 60, quantity is 40. That's all a monopolist is willing to produce. But if we continue to move downwards along this demand curve, so I've made these little kind of spikes here to show you, think of those as representing people, okay, along the demand curve above the orange triangle. Those are all people that they are willing to pay those prices. They're not willing to pay $60, but they're willing to pay a price between $60 and $20. Now, the marginal cost of producing that additional unit is only $20. In an efficient market, in a perfectly competitive industry, we would see that they would produce as the quantity up until it equals marginal cost, until price is marginal cost. So they would produce all the way to when it's $20 and then be a much larger quantity. The monopolist, however, because they have the market power, because their price is $60, there are all these people represented by that orange triangle for which the additional unit of the good, it's worth more to them than the marginal cost. However, because the price is being charged as the higher monopoly price, they are not able to consume that good. Therefore, total surplus decreases as a result of having a monopoly. So monopolies create a deadweight loss. Again, don't forget the idea that economists don't really mind whether surplus goes to consumers or producers, but they do mind when that surplus decreases, and that's what's happening here because of the monopoly. This has been a LaMoney production.